Welcome to this meeting of the Council's Cabinet, which, as you know, will be a webcast. That's not a threat, that's a promise. Before we start the proceedings, can I bring to your attention some housekeeping matters? There's no expected fire alarm today, so if there is a fire and if the alarm sounds, please follow the fire and emergency procedures and leave by the nearest fire exit. Can I also ask you to use your microphone when addressing the meeting and that it's switched off when you're not using it? And please, 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 please ensure that your mobile devices are turned to silent. I've left mine in the office today deliberately because I can't work out how to do it on mine. Anyway, that's irrelevant. Are there any apologies? Yes, there are, I think.
Thank you, Leader. We have apologies from Councillor Brydesdale.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any declarations of interest in respect of any of the items on the agenda? None? Thank you. Now, agenda item 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting, which took place on the 20th of July 2026. You've had a look at them. Can I sign them as a true and accurate record, please? Agreed? Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to move to item 4 on the agenda. This is questions from the public. And this month I have been privileged to receive one question from the public, but the questioner has not shown up, Jamie.
Thank you, Leader. The member of the public has not turned up today, so the question will be sent to them after the meeting.
Thank you very much indeed. So I'll now move on to item 5, which is Chair's urgent business. Do I have any urgent business, Jamie?
And no urgent business today, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. So we go on to a rather important item then. As big days at the office go, this is quite a big day. It's also a very tall day at the office, isn't it? 13 stories tall, in fact. So we're going to be talking today about the Civic Centre Phase 1 contract award and the City College agreement to lease. And to help us with the momentous occasion, in the room we have Paul Fanshawe from City College Plymouth, and Lorraine Hill is here too, also from City College Plymouth. Thank you very much. We're also joined by the members of the project team, Camille and Emma are here. There's probably some other people here hiding away under the table. It's rather a lot of people required. And then online, we have an all-star cast as well. John, great to see you again from Capital and Centric, John Moffat. We also have Mark Braund as well from BDP, part of the team, and David Draffen, who's broken from his holiday in order to be with us today. We're very pleased to see you there, David. Thank you for joining us. We'll make this as quick as we can, but obviously, as it's such a momentous decision that we've got to make today, we might have to leave you short of a cocktail or two today. The report will be, there's a part 1 and a part 2 report, okay? And I like to try and avoid going into part 2 as much as we can for openness and transparency reasons. They may, though, if you get a bit proby on the questions, may need to do that. But you've all read the documentation in part 2. You've got all the numbers, you've got all the ins and outs. So I'm not expecting to go into part 2 unless we really, really have to, okay? So what I'm going to do now is to invite Councillor, I think Councillor Matt Smith is probably going to do this one for us. So Matt, please lead the congregation.
Thank you, Leader. As you said, this is a really, really important day, really big day, exciting day for the Cabinet and for the City, because we're talking about a project that people in the City really care about, but we're also talking about the potential that this project has to have a real impact beyond the work on the Civic itself too. So it's a really exciting day for us. The redevelopment of the Civic Centre really represents one of the most ambitious regeneration projects that we've ever seen in Plymouth. We've got an iconic building, which we're going to breathe new life into, with 144 high quality build to rent homes, a blue-green skills hub for City College, which is going to provide training space for 2,000 students across 60 courses. These are really ranging from apprenticeships right through to adult skills programs too. And the aim of that really is to equip Plymouth's workforce with the skills needed for the jobs of the future. We've already achieved loads since taking this building back from Urban Splash. We've raised 36 million, including an £18.4 million grant from Homes England. We've stripped out the building, we've completed a new design and secured 2 tenants in City College Plymouth and Capital and Centric. We've launched the redevelopment at UK Reef, we've completed a public consultation and we've submitted planning and listed building consent, which has all been granted. So the project in itself is really important, as I said, but what really makes this project so important is it's the start of something much, much bigger for the city. Alongside previous projects like the Box, Armada Way, we're signalling the rebirth of the city centre, and in particular on this project, reintroducing the concept of city centre living back into the central core of the city centre. Of course, it's a heritage project, it's a skills project, it's a housing project, but more than that, it's a market-making project. And it's a project that will really shine a light to residents, to government, funders, developers about the scale of our ambition for Plymouth and what we can do in the city centre. It's ultimately a project about improving people's lives by providing the housing for our future workforce. And today we're really putting our money where our mouth is. We're kickstarting the project by approving a contractor, getting the scaffolding up, removing the cladding panels as the first major step in its redevelopment before later works starting in summer 2027, before handing over to Capital and Centric and to City College for their fit-outs with opening in 2030. It's a really big and a complicated project, and I think the report acknowledges that. So really want to thank our partners in Homes England, Capital and Centric, City College for being alongside us on this journey, as well as, of course, our brilliant in-house project team too. We'll be immediately continuing work on the Stage 2 contract award and design process, and the report sets out some of those risks that we have to face as we expose more of the building and price the main elements of the work too. I'm really pleased to say that the project is also now going to include sorting out the Civic Pond. We've got £600,000 allocated to dealing with both the leaks and the pump and circulation system. So we hope to have a design and contractor by October, planning in November, with a start on site in December and completion in April, which I know will be good news to lots of people in the city. I know that Cabinet are really aware of a lot of the challenges facing the construction industry at the moment, linked to the Iran war, the risk with inflation too. The building also falls under the Building Safety Act, which means we need to comply with that and requires us to designate the Civic Centre as a high-risk building. But we've really still made great progress. We've got really strong partnerships and careful planning and shared commitment to delivering this transformational project. We're moving very confidently towards the next phase of development. For the scaffolding to go up on the Civic Centre in September is really, really exciting. This is one of the council's biggest ever projects, and it's going to have one of our biggest ever impacts in terms of that market-making scheme. But for now, I'm really pleased we're off that starting point and getting on with the project and able to say to people that this is finally happening after a long time of lots of questions about whether anything would really happen with the Civic Centre. So you'll be hearing from our partners in Capital and Centric, but first I'll hand over to our architect, Mark Braun, to talk through the scheme in a little bit more detail.
Thank you very much. It's amazing to be part of such a team that has such high aspirations and vision for this project, both with you as a council and obviously Capital and Centric as developer leading the project now with the City College as well. So yeah, it's a real honour to be involved with this. Much has been said, so I'm going to kind of keep this relatively short if I can, albeit people who know me might struggle to believe that. So we've come a long way, as I think has already been set out from when this building was originally conceived and delivered, and the vision that it kind of held to kind of set a new context for Plymouth and its kind of governance. to where we are now, picking up the pieces from Urban Splash and delivering a new vision with a new team driving this project forward at pace now. We've agreed a kind of really core principle, as has already been set out, the blue-green skills hub within the base of the building, a refurbished tower, and then a newly refurbished rooftop terrace with restaurant for the first time. And this project really is, from our mindset, about restoring a landmark. No, it's not just a Grade 2 listed icon, but it's about what it represents for Plymouth, its history, its social history, its aspiration at the time. And I think that's just as relevant as it was back in 1960 as it is today about setting this new context. So restoring the civic's pride is absolutely at the heart of everything that we've aspired to develop with the team around this project. Make it iconic, make it sustainable, and make it transformational for the city and the people who will live in it and use the building around it. So these are some pictures about how this project is going to look. John will show you a much more engaging fly-through in a moment, so I'm not going to dwell on these too long. But just to talk you very briefly through the plans. So through the lower ground, we've got our new college with workshop spaces, delivering this new, exciting education for people in the city region, alongside the back of house facilities for the residents with bike stores, bin stores, and the like. This picture shows you that transformed ground floor that today is just car parking and fairly blank frontage, and we're looking to completely transform that into a really engaged, exciting, active space with lots of college uses visible from the car park that's there today. We're looking to chop a new hole through the centre of the building that's going to bring daylight down to that lower ground level for the first time, create a really exciting educational space for people using that building, as well as transforming how the spaces are used around it outside to the Civic Square, and also activating historic rooftop terraces. The ground floor in the blue again is largely the college spaces, but you'll also see now the yellow, which is where the residential entrance is to the amenity, and also the stairs and lifts within the building. But we've also got this area of purple, which is the new access to take people straight up onto the roof and to that restaurant that is proposed. This is a new insertion into the bridge courtyard area, which is a new escape stair and link bridge to provide compliance with the High Risk Building Safety Act, as was mentioned earlier, which is something that has to be provided. A really exciting renewal of the reflection pond that's in there, new landscaping being introduced to kind of create great spaces for residents and the public alike. An activated Royal Parade piece of green space is proposed with active frontages into the college. And up at that first floor level, again, the blue areas being the more generalised teaching spaces within the college, and the yellow spaces being areas for the built-to-rent amenity offer for residents, which includes gyms, co-working spaces, and the like. Within the actual apartment building itself, the tower, obviously we're looking to convert that amazing building that's up there. People don't realise quite how good it probably is sat within that building. But one of the things that we have to do to make it compliant with a high-risk building is we also have to introduce a new lift and also alterations to the staircases to make it safe for residents to come in. We're looking at delivering, as was set out, really high-quality new homes, bespokely designed for this building that activate the frontages, create great spaces for people to live on the facade and take advantage of the amazing views that sit around the city. This is really transformed from the previous planning application and approval from Urban Splash into something that we think is really exciting and really unique to this building frontage. So 144 homes, they're all going to be space standard compliant. We're going to deliver a range of accessible homes within the building to make it as accessible and inclusive as a development as we possibly can. And a real range of typologies with exposed soffits and really retaining that kind of industrialized kind of quality that this building has to create something that really is attractive for people to want to come and aspire to live in. There's lots of work, and we're not going to dwell on this too long, going on about making this building move through those next stages as we work with the contractor through that stage 2 of the PCSA agreement. And we're really looking to renew this building but retain those original design aspirations that this building held, but bring it back to the future. No reference there, or maybe a reference there to some famous film trilogies. But up on the rooftop, we're looking at redelivering the original rooftop restaurant. A lot of work has been done here again with the high-risk building process to allow that to happen. We're actually going to deliver a kitchen facility up there, which the original building never had. They used to dumbwaiter food up 14 floors, and now we'll be able to serve people hopefully with amazing food and drink and take advantage of those amazing views out over the Hoe and the wider surrounds. So finally, the landscape setting, as was spoken about, this is something that we see as important as the building itself. The square is listed, the setting of the building is listed, and we see real opportunity, as well as delivering a new linear park to Royal Parade to create great new spaces for the public. We really want to deliver high quality new public realm around this building as well. And all of this has been developed with consultation, with huge amount of design expertise from the team, from huge design input from Captain Centric and the City College into how this building project moves forwards, incorporates all of those visions and delivers something that hopefully is both aspirational, transformational, but also practical to be delivered and achieve what everyone aspires to achieve with this project. Thank you. Over to John now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. I'll just share my screen. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay. Hopefully that's coming through now. So what I wanted to do this morning, hello everybody. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about this. I just wanted to show you some of the latest plans for the scheme, and then I've interlaced into this some images of our other developments to give you a sense of what we've done elsewhere. This is very much within our skill set. So this is the residence entrance area to the development. So coming in through next to the reflecting pool into your tenant amenity where you have a gym. This is some images of one of our other developments where we have residence gym, and then along to a residence amenity co-working space, which will be really kind of the beating heart, the community hub, where we get all of our residents together and build that community. Here's another scheme designed by BDP that's just opened this weekend, actually, called Weir Mill, where we've got rooftop resident amenity as well. And then rising up the building, obviously sat alongside the college, rising up the building into these fantastic apartments that are going to have really jaw-dropping views out across to the Hoe and beyond, all centered really around that outdoor space. And here's some footage of some of our other developments where you can see both new build and retrofit. It's all to exactly the same specification. So these are all Captain Centric brand standard compliant apartments. So it would be the same as we would deliver anywhere else in the country, a really kind of aspirational product. And then spilling out into the public realm, working off the back of the fantastic work that's been done with Armada Way into the public realm that we will then animate with the kind of programme of events that are part of the process of managing these developments, that is all done in-house with Captain Centric, and that would be done in partnership with both the council and the college. So hopefully giving you a quick taste of what an exciting scheme this is going to be. We are absolutely thrilled about getting planning and moving now into the delivery of the scheme.
Fabulous. Do we want to take questions at this point, or do we want to hear from our colleagues in City College at this point?
I was under the impression you were just here for questions. Yeah, great.
You don't want to say anything? That's fine by me. Fine by me. Okay. Well, in that case, yeah, I think we'll take some questions, because it's I think you've described it as quite a big project. Now, if I could perhaps start with Councillor Lowry.
I'm going to be the slightly grumpy person in the room and say, yes, but when is it really, really going to happen? When are we going to see some physical works actually happen on site? Because I know as a previous incumbent of this project, we had a few difficulties, but it'd be really good to assure people that actually we're going to see some workers on site very soon. So have we got a date for that, please?
At this point, I'm looking at David to see if he's got any dates in his diary.
Yeah, I'm sure the team have got it, but it's going to be really exciting, Mark. The whole of the building is going to be scaffolded. The site compound will start in September, and certainly into this time, certainly late winter, early spring next year, the building will be scaffolded, and you'll start to see all of those cladding panels being removed and taken back to the frame, the concrete frame. So although it'll be you won't necessarily be able to see exactly straight through the scaffolding, the view will be extraordinary because it'll just be the frame that people won't have seen since the 1960s, late 50s and 1960s, when the building was first conceived of and built. What happens then is next year, in August time, we'll move to the next contract where the council, the activity will be inside the building, replacing all of the shell and the core, all of the electrics, all of the mechanical and engineering, and then providing that to our colleagues at the college and City College and Capital Centric in 2029. At that point, it's a fit out. So really, from September site compound into October, November, it's going to be a hive of activity. I don't think anyone in the city will be able to say that this isn't happening.
Well, it is really good news. Camille, you've got the pleasure of this chasing every detail and chasing every deadline. What would you like us to know today?
Just a lot of work's been going on in the Civic. Even now we have Gwale removing asbestos, and it's a whole transition from Gwale to the new contractor. So, we'll start seeing, one coming out, the other coming in, taking over the site setup. Also, the hoarding lines are going to start moving because we're going to need to extend the hoarding lines to allow for material and everything to go on site. So in October, it will be full out, a lot of vehicular movement, a lot of things going on. The whole outlay of the outside will be totally different. And yes, as I said, it's just, as David said, a hive of activity for the rest of the year. So people probably get fed up of it, but everyone's been waiting a long time for this. The time has come. So I think it's finally showing the public that it's finally here. We're finally doing it and just delivering.
It is going to be a bit noisy, I think it's fair to say, for a while. But I think the point you just made there is the really important one, is that people are impatient for something to be happening. So it's just the enormous sense of relief. I think what's going to be important though with our Armada Way project, when people were wondering why everything took so long, I think communicating to the public about why we couldn't have it ready by next Thursday will be sort of important. There's not that many people still in Plymouth that can remember the Civic actually being built and how long that took. So for it to be unbuilt and then built again, is going to be quite a Herculean task, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I think the whole thing of us stripping the building back to bare bones and then building back up, it's something that you hardly see. And on a grade 2 listed building. And also we're dealing with things on the new Grenfell law as well. So that in itself is a feat within itself. We're still learning along the way. So no, it will be magnificent.
Tess, you got a question?
What opportunities will there be for use of the local supply chain, including training and educational opportunities?
Thank you for that question. I think we all agree it's really important that the Civic Centre benefits as many people as possible, whether it is those who live there, those who choose to undertake courses at the City College Plymouth, or our local labour supply chain and the creation of apprenticeships. I think what's really important is to look at what Morgan Sindel have delivered on Armada Way, and in many cases they exceeded the employment and in particular the apprenticeships that they delivered. So I think it's important that we should actually look on that history of what they have previously delivered, and we will replicate that on the Civic Centre to make sure that these benefits are seen wider than just the immediate built product.
Joanna.
Thank you, and I'm just really excited about this. I'm one of those people that love this building, and for it to be coming back to life during our administration is such a thrill for me. I know my husband has memories of his dad was a city planner who worked there, and going and having lunch with him in the restaurant when he was little. So I'm looking forward to us being able to go and have a meal in the restaurant. My question is, Councillor Smith, you said you termed the scheme as market making, and I wondered if you could just explain a bit more about what that means and talk us through a little bit more about for whom these homes are being developed. I don't know who wants to answer that.
Yeah, I can just touch on the market making bit, but I'll pass over to Emma for the sort of ownership of the building and how that works. It's basically, we've got all this other work going on around the city living framework and trying to reintroduce city centre living to the city, because we're a very odd city in the sense that we don't have lots of people living in the city centre. So essentially at the moment, there isn't really a market for housing in the city centre. And because this is kind of the first step on that city living piece of work, getting this work underway, getting the civic centre underway, it kind of signals to developers, to funders, that actually living in Plymouth city centre does work. And so it's about creating that excitement, having that first project, which is obviously being run by the council, but then to show private developers it does work too, and then we'll hopefully have more people coming into the city showing interest and wanting to build here too. And I'll pass over to Emma for the bit about building ownership and stuff like that.
Thank you. So just to clarify, I mean, it's a build to rent product that we're delivering here, and part of what's really important for the city is that we offer housing choice and quality of homes, which is just something we want to just build upon to encourage people to live and work here and create a life in Plymouth, and that housing choice is really important for that. Do you want to pick up the ownership?
Yes, so on the ownership, so the council is going to continue to own the building as a freeholder, and there's going to be a dual head lease to both Captain Centric and also to City College Plymouth. These leases are currently being negotiated, so we're just going through that process right now. But, you know, from our consultation, one of the things is, you know, we had young people who can't wait this, and when they finish university, they want to live here. We had a lot of retirees as well to say they'd love that with the whole Captain Centric offer of a gym and everything else. So there's a wide area of people or type of people who would sort of go for this, and keeping the people back in the community. A lot of people go to college and they say there's nowhere to live. So this offers that bridge, as well as what Emma and Matt alluded to.
Thanks. I think it'd be useful to understand a little bit more about the arrangements, you know, after it's been built, because, you know, you're saying, you know, who's it for is kind of important, right? Because, I mean, already, you know, the local media are not helping by trying to generate more clicks than conversation. So, you know, it is about, it's a premium product. It's about setting the tone, but it's also about selling a vision of what's possible, because that's part of it, isn't it? Like Matt was saying, that yeah, and if you've lived in Plymouth all your life and you haven't been to a lot of other cities around, you know, particularly where there's a lot of regeneration, you won't be familiar with this kind of setup. People who've been around a bit, been to other places, will know this is how it's done. So we've got some of that as a demonstrator, but it'd be useful, I think, to sort of, you know, work out, you know, how is that arrangement going to work that you're currently talking about? Because the council's putting a lot of money in, you know, quite rightly. But I mean, what is the council, or rather the council taxpayer, getting out of this, other than a shiny new building?
So I just start with the final point around what's the taxpayer getting. You're right, there's a lot of public support that's going into this, and when I look at these things, I think we don't get involved in things that are easy because the market would deliver it. It's about demonstrating to the wider market that Plymouth is a place that is investable and that there is opportunity here. And with this building, we've got a unique opportunity to do that as a Grade 2 listed post-war building, which at the time demonstrated that Plymouth was coming out of the rubble from the Second World War. We're using that opportunity again to demonstrate that Plymouth is open for business and that it's a place that you would want to invest in as an institution, but also as people. You know, people come to live in places. They don't come to live in buildings. They come to live in a place that gives them opportunity, that gives them a place to have, you know, good educational opportunities for their children, a good opportunity of access to work. And that's what this Civic Centre here is demonstrating. It isn't just about housing, it is about skills and educational opportunities with our partners at City College Plymouth. And it's about, again, as I've mentioned, it's about providing housing choice for people in the city.
I'm gonna bring David in and John to answer the Mrs. Merton question about, you know, what first attracted you to get involved in a project this complicated. Yeah, I mean, what do you two say to this?
So I was going to mainly bring John in, leader, so that he could talk about the market making. But one thing I would just say in terms of that value for money point and, you know, why we're doing it, I think there are I've been involved in city centres a long time, and there are certain projects, and I think Matt alluded to that at the beginning, where the value cannot be just described on the project itself. And I think that's the view we've taken. That's the view Homes England taken. And whether it's mailboxes in mailboxes in Birmingham and the canal and that totally transformed, or the rotunda in Birmingham, or it's Cole Brothers, the old John Lewis in Sheffield. Those are iconic buildings that they're invested in for two reasons. One, because you can't leave them, but also they signal a complete change of the market. And this will drive, and already is driving, land values and commercial interest, and it's going to drive the rents up. And there will be a mixed product, but we should be really confident that, you know, we are doing this not just for nostalgic reasons. These are really, really clear commercial reasons to really realise our ambition. But I might just invite John, because this is his day job, and I think he can give some really good examples of where he's done this.
Thanks, David. Yeah, just I kind of wanted to follow up on Councillor Smith's comments, which I agree with completely. And just to give you a good example, actually, this morning I was touring one of our developments, which actually Mark designed for us elsewhere in the country. And that's a really great example where we came into an area where there hadn't been any residential development for a very long time, or certainly not of any calibre or quantity. And we have come in there, we've redeveloped a couple of listed structures and two new build blocks as well. And the idea was to prove to the market that this location could support a high quality aspirational residential product. When I say high quality aspirational, it's also priced appropriately to the local market. So we're not pricing it at, you know, central Manchester rents, for example. This was priced appropriately. And we launched the development at the weekend. We had a queue down the road at 9 a.m. Such is the pent up demand for good quality homes. People really want to be living in urban centres, and there isn't many opportunities in lots of our urban centres up and down the country. The really interesting thing about that development is that already, we only opened the doors on Saturday. Already there are 200 homes on site on the adjacent plot. There is a planning consent granted on 1,200 homes on the plot next door. We've already made that market, and we've proven that if you come and you deliver a really good quality product, you will attract tenants and investors, and that will then be replicated by the market. So I've got some great examples. I'd love to show you all around some of them at some point if you ever want to come and have a look. But I think it's worth noting that the average age of a first-time buyer in the UK is now touching 40. So that younger generation, they are driven by experience. I saw that Accenture said that 70% of millennials would rather buy an experience than a product. And that's only that trend continues further with younger generations. So Plymouth needs a product that is suitable, a rental product that is suitable, that is aspirational, that has those tenant amenities that generation are really seeking after. Otherwise, Plymouth will miss out. And once you capture that demographic and they put down roots and they form their network, they then stay in those urban centres and they bring that discretionary spend and that economic generation that is really valuable to the local economy. So it's definitely something that we've proven elsewhere we can do, and all of the demographic analysis that we do before we come and get involved in a project like this tell us that this will be a great success and will then be replicated by others beyond.
Thank you. Thanks, both of you, for that. Okay, I mean, one of the other exciting bits, which we mustn't forget to mention, is you two on the end there from the City College, because you're bringing like 2,000 students into the art of the city centre, aren't you? I mean, that's what it means for you, but it also, that's what it means for us as well. Because, you know, that's going to be a lot of spending power coming into town, isn't it? It's going to do tremendous things for the city centre. But I guess it'll do tremendous things for the college as well, won't it?
Thank you, Leader. I think, yeah, as you said, 2,000 students a year coming into the city centre, an active kind of frontage, that vibrance, to bring that vibrance back in. For the college, it's around about 17% increase in the number of students that will be studied, because we have 12,000 students a year, so you're adding 2,000 students a year on top of that. This is not transference, this is new skills. So what it's going to mean for the city is that number of new skills being delivered, and it's not just young people. So you'll have adults reskilling, people who want to go into these new industries of green skills, blue skills, the defence sector, all of that kind of stuff, will be able to access that through this city. And also, an important thing is it's open 6 days a week, so it'll be open on a Saturday, so the weekend, that accessibility is not just a weekday product. Fundamentally, the issue here is that people will be able to do this all through the week and fitting around people's lives, which is important.
I mean, the excitement as well is it fits in a lot to what we're trying to do with the dockyard and all these thousands of new jobs that we've got to create. And we've said right from the get-go that it's kind of our aspiration is for, you know, every kid in Plymouth to have a job if they want one. But it's also, like you say, returners, people who are switching careers, you'll be able to help them on that pathway too. And helping that whole drive, which is to get Plymouth as a whole a pay rise. That's what it's going to be about, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, there's a direct correlation. The skills that are being put there are aimed at getting people to the high value jobs. So what we didn't want, and the focus, a lot of the focus and activity at the minute is making sure that our communities, our residents have access to the great jobs that are coming through. We don't want to be just, you know, there will be people who move to Plymouth, but we want to make sure our communities are able to access the high value jobs. So within the centre, about 70% of the courses are directly blue and green. 30% of the courses are trying to provide that bridge. How do you get into that industry? Because some people won't be able to make that first step. So it's a visible presence to say 7% of these courses get you into the industry now. 30% of the courses bridge that gap. How do you get across to take your first step into that sector? As you say, Leader, it's about very much making sure people can access this and our communities benefit.
Thank you. It is really exciting, as Jemima said. And picking up what Mark said about when we will visibly see signs of the kind of rejuvenation of the centre. From an education point of view, when will the first students enter this the city centre campus? Which year?
September 2030.
Okay.
So we're handed the building in 2029, and it'll take a year for us to get that fitted out and ready. So the intention, September 2030, will be our first students coming in the door.
Great. I'm picking up what the leader said about the significant link of the courses that will be carried out there to match the city's demand in terms of employment. Recently, the government have said that they want schools to adapt their curriculum to suit the particular employment needs of their locality and so on. So have you given thought yet, some thought, obviously there's no programme, leading up to September 2030, is that right? I get the numbers right. Mm-hmm. What outreach work will you be doing with secondary schools and colleges in the city to kind of drip that aspiration and ambition into our teenagers, our young people, about if this is the line of work that you wish to go down to, or this is the type of work you could go down to, what hook are you going to use to encourage them to go to this campus?
so I'll take this one. A number of different things are going on. Obviously, a building like this, you don't start from a standing point. So it's not like we'll open in September 2030 and just have the 2,000 people ready to come in. Yeah. So absolutely, our focus over the next, now we know where we're going, and this from today onwards, we build these courses, we build the provision to go into that space. In terms of the work with schools, there's a number of different things already going on. So we have a number of very strong school partnerships to try and give access and try and raise the aspiration to go into these high value sectors. We do things with a product called Carers, which allows you to visualize how do you get into the sector, how do you get into the defence sector, go and work for a company like, I don't know, whether Kawasaki or Babcock or Helsing or other kind of companies that have got the fantastic jobs there. So it's two things, it's careers advice, it's careers working at young people from age year 6, so last year of primary school and into year 7 and above. So it's how do you work with the kind of later primary, early secondary now, and also the people and the students who are currently at secondary school to show this is an aspiration point. We've already seen quite a transition towards vocational skills because with T levels and the new V levels that are due out in 2027, 28, that becomes more mainstream and alternative to A-level provision. So you're already seeing that transition and aspiration of vocational training because it gets you, the T levels are a route to get to university. They're not about, I think a lot of people think the T levels are about vocational training. It is, but it's about aspiration of going to university and study technical trades onwards. So I think we've had some really good process over the years of contextualizing and making vocational training real and aspirational. This is going to allow you to start seeing that with a new curriculum coming in, working with that careers piece, showing the routes, and very much we show the aspirate. We start with this is the career, this is the skills, this is where you can get to and make it attainable, which is the real, this building and the work beforehand is you show that pathway which will result into that.
And this does a lot of heavy lifting, actually, doesn't it, in a number of respects. Fair play, and it's great. And by the way, we've had a lovely time today listening to the architecture. We've had a lovely time listening to the aspiration. We've had a lovely time listening to the education and the quality of the fit out. But, and I got, there is we've talked about it's a shed load of cash. And there will be a return on it in terms of delivery on future stuff that will come as a spin-off of that. I mean, John described it because we're doing some pretty, I think it's not this degree level placemaking we're doing here. I mean, I don't want to put any too fine a point on it, but it is actually, it's big. But there are risks. I think it's important, that, I've mentioned the fact in part 2 of the report, we've got some information about the contract awards that we're going to do today, which we've all considered anyway as part of the paperwork and the prep for this meeting. But in the report itself, we talk about the gateway on phase 2, and it's really important that we just make it absolutely clear, this is not a project that's going to be fairly straightforward. Because if it's fairly straightforward, we probably need less people around the table than we've got today, right? This is a tough gig. So it's really important that we understand what the risks are. And yes, you mentioned the war in the Middle East, but there are other things as well. And they're listed in the paperwork for all to see. So it's really important that we've considered those, that we're aware of those, we're aware of the mitigations. Some of those risks are yet to emerge in their fullness, but they will as soon as work gets started. And again, we will have, I'm sure, conversations in future meetings about how those risks are mitigated if they should arise. So we're not going in this with our eyes closed. We're going very much into this with our eyes open. And that's council officials as well as councillors as well, okay? So everybody's clear. That's why we're all, excited and a bit trembly. But as you said, this is a project of such significance for the city that we have to manage the risk. We have to. Because if we don't, we won't do the place shaping. we won't do the intervention in skills that we need, we won't be able to deliver the city living that the dockyard requires. You want to add anything?
Leader, I think that's really important, and this isn't a scheme that any of you are going in to with your eyes closed. These risks are clearly there, but we've got a really good team. We've got a really good team that's worked on this to date. Will there be further twists and turns? There might be. There might be, because this is a project that is probably one of the most complex projects in the whole of the UK to deliver by its nature. But the prize is a huge prize for us as a place, as has already been said. In terms of the place shaping, we could do any other project in the city centre and people would still say, what are you doing about the civic centre? So this is really important. But Leader, I'm really pleased you highlighted those risks. Risks are risks. That doesn't mean they'll happen. But going in with our eyes open, knowing what we're going to do to mitigate those risks is absolutely key to what we do as a council. I just again want to pay tribute to the team that have got us to this stage. They quite literally eat, sleep and breathe Civic Centre. So thank you.
I mean, the Gateway 2 is the biggie for me, the biggest of the lot, and we'll in due course we'll see how that plays out. Okay, I'm going to hand back to Matt, see if there's anything he wants to say in closing before we go to the vote.
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered everything.
Okay, well, in which case the recommendations that we've got today are laid out on page 1 of the Cabinet Papers, and it's to proceed with phase 1 works on the basis of the cost profile set out in this report, to approve the reprofiling of PCC capital funding of 7.2 million to enable the appointment of the phase 1 contractor whilst remaining within the approved cost envelope, to award a contract to Morgan Sindall to deliver phase 1 works in the sum of 6.488 million, to accept the risks highlighted in this report, particularly the Homes England Gateway review in relation to phase 2 works, which I've just highlighted, to enter in a long lease with our friends at City College, Plymouth, on the terms set out in the report, and to add, this may be of interest to some people, some £600,000 to the capital programme in order to undertake the works on the Civic Square Pond in this as part of this project. People outside of Plymouth might wonder what on earth that's all about, but it is politics. I think it's fair to say, and it's a small price to pay for support for the project. And yeah, we'll use corporate borrowing budgeted within the capital pipeline for that. So, what a humongous decision this is. I hope you're all appreciative of just what a privilege it is for us to do this. I think like when Matt said, about the importance of this building, this was a symbol of Plymouth's rebirth in the post-war reconstruction, as you said, and the elevation of the building was a signal that Plymouth was back, and this is the importance of this. We'll be saying that again when this project is completed in a few years' time. But for today, I think this is a huge start, and I feel very lucky to be able to put this question to you. So I'm going to put all those recommendations en bloc to you. Can I see all those in favour, please show? Thank you very much indeed. That is carried unanimously, and we look forward to future updates and many interactions over the coming 48 months or so, and we're going to have fun. We're going to have fun with this. It's going to be great. Thank you all online once again for your enthusiasm We will take you up on that Cook's tour of your projects, John. I want to come to Stoke. I want to see what you've done there. That's my big one for me. I want to see that. But there's loads of excitement here you're going to bring to us, and you too, Lorraine and Paul are going to, I can't wait to see those students here every day. It's going to be amazing, isn't it? Okay, thank you all very much. You're free to go till the next time we summon you. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And thank you all to the staff team. I know how hard you're working on this. It's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, can I invite you now to item number 7? Sorry, I just need a breather for that.
No,
that's quite a big thing we've just done there. I mean, we have been talking about it for a very long time, haven't we? And yeah. So, the next item is called Local Government Association Corporate Peer Challenge. Now, we had a visit from a crack team of peer challenge reviewers a little while ago in June. So we've got the outcome of that, but more importantly, what do we do about it? So I'm going to just say what I think about this for a minute, and then if you don't mind, I'll bring you in for a more extensive.
That's okay.
Because I think the thing is about corporate peer challenges is like, I mean, I do, Tracy does, and I'm hoping in time you folks will want to get involved in doing, because sector-led improvements kind of really important to local government. It's inordinately useful to us to have people from outside the authority come and shine a light on the machinery of local government, not necessarily service reviews as such, although those are available. But the corporate peer challenge is really, it's probably the best health check you can get for local government, to see if you've got a beating heart and if it's breathing. But more importantly, whether things are circulating round or not. And Tracy will talk about that in a minute. But what I would say about it is we got to welcome the highly positive findings of the report. Got to thank the peer team for their constructive support, for their insight, the challenge that they gave us throughout the review. You, cabinet members, in particular, were put through the mill by the team. They, they're friends of local government because they are local government, but it would be fair to say that they didn't soft soap you at all. But I think it's important because I am going to read this because I think it's quite important. The report recognised the council's strong leadership, managerial as well as political, I have to say, clear vision for the city, effective partnership working, and a commitment of members and staff to delivering positive outcomes for residents. The report highlights the significant progress being made across the organisation and acknowledges the council's ambition to drive growth, to improve services and to support Plymouth communities. And we are proud of the strengths identified in the report and welcome its recommendations because they give us an opportunity to build on our success and to continue our journey of improvement. And that's the spirit in which we entered into the peer challenge, that we weren't going to just stick the report in a cupboard and forget about it. But I think overarchingly for me, the findings provide valuable assurance that the City Council is well placed to meet future challenges and deliver on its ambitions for the city. What say you, Tracy?
Thanks very much, Leader. When peer review happens, they'll often say, how do you know that you're improving and what do you do to improve? And there are lots of things we do internally to drive that improvement. We look at our performance, we have performance plans, we will come and challenge the way in which services work. The scrutiny process is really important as part of that. Lots of different ways internally we do it. But actually having a group of peers come in from outside who know the business, know the questions to ask, is absolutely invaluable in driving improvement. First of all, to check and challenge that where we think we are is where we are. That's the first thing, because in advance of a corporate peer challenge, we submit a self-assessment. So the first thing they do is have a look at that and say, do they know themselves? And I think the peers certainly felt we understood ourselves, and that's always a positive starting point. It's not always the case when you go into council. Sometimes there's a misalignment, but that was not the case. We were completely aligned in what they saw. And they could see a council that is keen to drive forward the change across the city, that is really clear on its placemaking leadership. It's really clear on the way in which it convenes, the way it works in partnership, and the way it's driving forward improvement. A council that understands its capacity to improve. We know we have a lot of priorities. We're incredibly ambitious for our place and our communities and our people that we serve, but could see how we were driving forward on that ambition and making a difference to our communities. They saw a council that really understood its finances. The finances are challenging, and the report highlights that those challenging financial positions are the same for most councils across the UK. There are very few councils that are not in a challenged financial position, and it's often because they're sitting on a pile of reserves, or they've had a very good financial settlement. But they also recognise the work we're doing to make sure that financially we are in the best position we can be. They complimented us on the way in which we work with our partners, the way in which we are really clear about our narrative, our Plymouth plan, the plan that is the community strategy for the city, the way in which we're working with Team Plymouth and driving forward the ambition that we have for making sure that those 25,000 new jobs that are coming to the city over the next 10 years are filled by as many people from within the city as possible. They have commented and they have highlighted the areas of performance, the services that are performing well. What they do is they externally use the benchmarks that are part of the Local Government Association framework for doing that. They've also highlighted the areas where we are on average, and there are a few areas which again we know about where we know we are driving forward improvements in our performance. So all in all, I think a really positive assessment of where we are, a council that knows itself. And so therefore, in relation to the recommendations, there weren't really any big surprises in the recommendations they had. And most of the recommendations were things we were working on next, because one of the things about priorities is you can't do everything at once. So the recommendations that we have about our Stronger by Design programme for change and for helping us balance the budget, getting the detail of that worked through is really important. And you've got the medium-term financial strategy on the agenda today, and that references the Stronger by Design programme, so work in progress. Joining up with our partners, looking at neighbourhoods and the way in which we particularly use our assets within neighbourhoods. And again, we've got work underway led by our Director of Public Health and our health colleagues to really work through the neighbourhood plans. And I know very key to those plans will be the way in which we use our libraries going forwards. They did suggest that we had a look at our governance arrangements, and very specifically thinking about the way in which Team Plymouth and our growth programmes all work together. So that was just a reflection that sometimes people are a little bit confused about which conversation is happening and where it's happening. So again, something that we know about and we're working through. As part of the City Leadership Group, we are refreshing the Plymouth Plan, which was developed in 2014. And of course, at that time, we only had a twinkle in our eyes about Team Plymouth and what that would involve. So it really is time to refresh our Plymouth Plan, and the partners we are doing it, the peers have suggested that we make sure that that is a wide engagement in the Plymouth Plan. And then finally, thinking about the narrative for our growth agenda and making sure that we are always in everything that we do really clear about the inclusive nature of growth, something that I know we are passionate about. And what they've said is just keep making sure that everything that you're doing that might be or might sometimes feel about bricks and mortar is never about bricks and mortar. It's about stable, warm homes for people to live in. It's about buildings where children can be educated. These are all the elements that put people in places, and making sure that we are always very clear about why we act. So I think those recommendations, we'll take those. They feel very, very positive, and they were things that we were working on as the next stage. In terms of the action plan, you've got an action plan before you. Subject to you agreeing that action plan, we'll submit that back to the LGA as our action plan. I know we want our scrutiny committee to have a look at it too, and to be held to account through our scrutiny committee for delivery of the action plan. The peers will come back in a year's time, and so they'll hold us to account as well to make sure that we have delivered on that, and make sure that we are making the progress that we want to make, and I know they want to make for us. I know they took away many ideas about the things that we're doing here, took them back to their own councils, and those corporate peer challenges are really so important in spreading good practice, as well as those areas making suggestions about areas for improvement. And so there's a strong encouragement to take part in corporate peer challenge, because you do learn as much as you give in terms of the advice that you're giving. And just very finally, one of the peers, who is a very, very experienced leader of a council, was very clear that this council is amongst the top 10% performing councils in the country, and I think that is a strong recommendation, and both a praise to all of the members who work in this council, but also the 2,500 staff who also work for this council, all working every single day to deliver the best services for the people of this city. Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Tracy. And yeah, any observations from you all? John, I'll start with you.
Thank you. I know you're too modest to say, but I actually just want to draw attention to a line in there at the start on page 19, where it says, the council's leader and chief executive have played an absolutely pivotal role in what is being achieved in Plymouth, and that doesn't appear in every corporate peer challenge report. So I think it's really important to note that. And also, because of having the culture portfolio, I was really pleased to see how they described us as having bravery around the development of the city's cultural offer as a catalyst, including direct council funding and securing external investment in the Box Museum and the Art Gallery and the Theatre Royal Plymouth. That's not down to me, that's been a long journey, but it's really nice to see that recognised. I was just going to talk a little bit about the part of the action plan that I'm responsible for, which was the developing a communications narrative relating to inclusive growth. Excuse me, I'm quite croaky today. So why is this important? And I really do welcome this recommendation. It's important because public support for growth depends on people understanding how investment improves their everyday lives, as Tracy said. And if residents only see construction projects and housing developments or infrastructure works, they may not appreciate the wider benefits that are being delivered because those things are happening. So a stronger inclusive growth narrative will help demonstrate that growth is not an end in itself, but it's a means to improving quality of life, creating opportunity, and reducing inequalities across our city. And by clearly communicating the link between economic growth and resident outcomes, we can build greater trust. We can also strengthen civic pride. We can encourage community participation and create broader support for the long-term changes that we need to secure Plymouth's future prosperity. And consistent messaging across the council and its partners will help ensure that residents hear a coherent story about where the city is heading and the role that they can play in its success. So what are we going to do? Well, we've already made significant progress in articulating Plymouth's growth ambitions through the new growth strategy and major regeneration programmes such as City Living, Freeport, Oceansgate and investment in the city centre. These initiatives set out a strong vision for Plymouth's future and demonstrate how growth is being delivered across the city. However, we do recognise that we need to go further in explaining not just what we are delivering, but why growth matters and what it means for local people. And while the city needs to grow economically to create prosperity and attract investment, residents need to see how that translates into tangible benefits for themselves, for their families, and for their communities. So we'll develop a clear and consistent inclusive growth narrative that connects major investment and infrastructure projects to outcomes that people care about: better jobs, improved skills opportunities, more homes, healthier communities, improved transport and a stronger local economy. This narrative will build on existing work and be developed jointly with partners, ensuring there's a shared story about Plymouth's future and a collective voice championing the benefits of growth. And a workshop bringing together colleagues from the Growth Directorate and Corporate Communications team is going to be held to develop that narrative and the key messages and supporting communications tools that will be able to be used consistently across the organisation. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Some of you have been lucky enough to have some tasks to perform in the improvement space. Councillor Lowry, your name is on there.
It is indeed, and that's why Tracy mentioned it in all fairness, so I just wanted to give you all a reassurance that even on my discussions this morning with Cy Bellamy, the director responsible, we're making good progress on presenting a plan, and that will be published soon. So just to give you some reassurance that that's in hand and shouldn't be a problem. But I just briefly wanted to turn to page 34, but 18 of the report, which it refers to the council's own programme for apprenticeships. I visited other councils, and yes, they do have a few apprenticeships in place, but as you can see from the report, 6.5% of our employees, a total of 185, are currently engaged in a council apprenticeship, including some 75 participants who are doing the digital academy. That is a considerable number of apprenticeships that we have, and we are increasing them because it's an incredible way of creating your own managers of the years to come and providing employment for local people who are paying their council tax. So just an example there of something that nobody really gets to hear about, but we're doing actually a really good job locally, providing jobs for local people and giving them the opportunity to serve on this council.
That's true, and you know, it is one of the great privileges of being a councillor. One of the things, you know, being a council member of staff is you get to change the place you live in. I mean, it's an incredibly important thing to be able to do. You know, I think we have a few successes of where we brought apprentices through to greater things. Have we not on this table? I mean, you know, I mean, you know, it does work, and we want to do more of it. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, that's a good observation. I mean, I'm going to confess to you, I mean, you know, having been and done a few of these myself, sometimes the list of recommendations is a bit longer than this. And it's all to do with encouragement and helping on the improvement journey. But part of the thing about being a councillor that's self-aware is that you're able to head some of this stuff off the past before it actually happens. You know what you need to do. But I mean, some of these are really interesting. I mean, the one about the reviewing the governance, for example, with because we've got so many partnerships, haven't we? We have so many partnerships, and sometimes, as I think you were hinting, that you know, we'll be on, which day is it? It's Tuesday. So these people that I sat down with this morning are now in this meeting with me doing this. And so, you know, it's kind of, because we have got the active participation of so many stakeholders and partner organisations, the anchor institutions, they all want to help and they all want to do more. So I think the review team picked up on that and listened to that. So I think the job that Tracy and I have now got, I think, on this is, okay, you said you want to do some more. How about this?
Yeah.
That'll be our next job. We'll take them at their word that they would like to do more than they're currently doing, and we'll see how that goes. Because, you know, I think we're certainly in the context of the new Plymouth plan, particularly, you know, you're doing the local plan, but there's the Plymouth plan, and that is, you know, a rebooting and a revitalisation of those conversations that we were talking about. Not least things have moved on since the last time we did it. Those institutions, by the way, you know, they themselves have altered quite a bit in terms of their priorities since we last sat down with them to talk about these things. So it's a good time to do it, I'll be honest. Anyway, is everybody happy with what they got? Councillor Lawson, you're happy with you and John?
Say one thing, because one thing that struck me was when we had the informal feedback at the end of the week from the team. An immense sense of pride I felt as a councillor with councillors and other officers in that room hearing the words, and anybody who was sitting in that room who didn't feel pleased and proud of their council, whether it's political or the thousands of people who work day in, day out in all sorts of weathers and all sorts of roles, will have a heart of stone. So I just think there was an immense bounce when we heard the words. We like what we do, we're proud of what we do, but when you hear esteemed colleagues, expert colleagues in their field, various fields, whether they're elected members or officers, giving the positives that we heard that day, giving us pointers to be an even better council, I felt really chuffed. That was one of the best days of being a councillor for me, and I've had a few. So I just think it's a great thing for us to acknowledge the huge impact of everybody, who, no matter what role they have as part of Plymouth City Council, for the input they give to the people of the city. It's great.
Yeah, I think this is absolutely right. I mean, social media can sort of distort view of performance, can't it? I mean, we know what we do, and we know how hard the staff here work and what they perform against the odds a lot of the time, you know. And it's good for their morale, I think, to have that recognised by their peers. It's really important. And believe you me, you know, the officer team that comes as part of these peer challenges are all people on a mission, because they've given up a week of their time to come. So they don't want to waste your time, and they don't want to waste their time. And if they have, as a result of their pre-reading, got a bee in their bonnet, they will explore it to the nth degree, and they will not let go. So, you know, it's really important that people understand that this is not some sort of pat on the back exercise. It's a vigorous and rigorous deep dive into the heart of an organisation. You know, that's what it's about. Anyway, what we've been asked to do today is to thank the Peer Challenge team, which I'm delighted to do because they were terrific. To note and endorse the recommendations of the Peer Challenge team as set out in the report, and then to agree the action plan. The members and the officers who will be responsible for it, we'll put that into the scrutiny process and make sure that scrutiny is an active part of this process as well. Can I see all those in favour of that, please? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. And we've published this report now, right? It's out there. Yes. Do we make a big fuss about that? You know. Will there be some TikTok videos? Or will there be people walking towards you with the camera facing you? I mean, how do we do this now? I don't know. I'm just asking you as the comm supremo, really. I mean, we'll see what we can do to make it creative, I think. But I think a big fuss needs to be made of this, because you don't get one of these every day. And the last time we had one 5 years ago, you know, it wasn't as complimentary as this. And the one we had, well, you asked Councillor Nicholson about what happened to him when they had one. In fact, I'll tell you that story another day. Thank you very much.
Can I respond?
Yes,
yeah,
of
we've
course.
got a whole plan about making a big fuss about this because, as you said, it's not just a celebration of the members, it's all our incredible staff, and everybody really needs to feel incredibly proud of this, so we'll make sure that everybody knows.
Yeah, I'm very keen for the staff, all staff at all levels, to understand the organisation that they're working for is well regarded by others. Yeah. We'll now move on, if I may, to the next of our massive items on the agenda today, which is the SEND Sufficiency Strategy and Delivery Plan. And I was just going to introduce David just as he's walked out there. But Joe and Nathan are coming in as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. If they haven't left. Hello. So, yeah, we're going to do the SEND Sufficiency Strategy and Delivery Plan. This is in the supplementary pack, pages 27 to 44, for those of you following. And welcome Joe and Nathan for coming and joining us again today. I'm going to hand over now, I think, to Tess Blight, who's going to introduce the report. Tess.
Thank you, Leader. I welcome the SEND Sufficiency Strategy Report. New specialist places will be created across Plymouth schools as part of our ambitious plans to improve support for children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities. The SEND Sufficiency Strategy sets out how the City will respond to demand for SEND support, helping more children to attend schools in the City, close to their friends, family and community. The strategy proposes the creation of 360 additional specialist places by 2030 across schools, together with investment to make all schools and academies more inclusive and better equipped to meet a wider range of needs. The plans build on work already underway. Since September 25, 68 additional specialist places have already been created at Longcores, Woodlands and Riverside schools, helping more children learn with the right support within Plymouth. Cabinet are being asked to approve a package of measures, including a new SEND placement grant fund to allow schools and academies to adapt their buildings, equipment and learning environments. Investment in a programme of SEND projects across Plymouth's educational estate, including development work linked to the proposed rebuild and expansion of Milford School. Further feasibility studies to identify opportunities for future specialist provision and improved accessibility in schools. And a programme of engagement and co-production with children and young people, parents and carers, schools, academies and partners this autumn. We want every child in Plymouth to have access to the right support, in the right place, at the right time. Families have told us they want more support closer to home and need greater confidence that schools can meet their children's needs. This report shows that we are listening. This is about creating more specialist places, strengthening inclusive practice across all our schools, and helping more children learn alongside their friends and neighbours in their local communities. The strategy is part of Plymouth's wider SEND reform plan, which was submitted to the Department for Education in June and aims to reduce reliance on expensive out-of-city placements, to improve outcomes for children and young people, and to increase confidence in the SEND support systems. Creating more local provision and reducing the need for long-distance travel to school should deliver substantial savings that can be reinvested into services for children and young people with SEND. The SEND reform plan supports the delivery of the graduated approach to inclusion, which is already established as a way of partnership working between schools and the local authority. The reform plan will utilise the government's experts at hand offer for early, flexible and layered support so that schools can meet a wider range of needs without the need to escalate to specialist provisions. The plan for inclusion bases forms an important part of the direction of travel for mainstream secondary schools. Finally, the programme of engagement and co-productive activity across all schools and academies will take place this autumn. This aims to ensure that children and young people are at the heart of provision planning across the city. I commend the report to you.
Thank you very much indeed, Tess. Nathan, Joe, David, anything to add to that introduction? It's a cracking bit of work.
Well, what can I add to that? That was a really comprehensive and thorough introduction to the report. I would just, I suppose, just emphasise a couple of things. First of all, I think the success in delivering the 68 places that we've also delivered and the cooperation and collaboration with 3 of our schools in order to work with us to do that. And that has created great opportunities in some parts of our city for children and young people to have their school closer to home. This plan wants to have that everywhere across the city, and with the ambition of having 360 additional places by the academic year 2031, average 90 a year, you know, we will go some way to achieve that for 360 more children and young people. I would also just again reinforce how much this really sits alongside the delivery of the national SEND reforms, because as Councillor Blight has said, absolutely central to those reforms are the opportunities for more children where their needs can be met in mainstream schools with this right type of inclusive practice and inclusive provision. So alongside the capital build and the provision of the spaces for the children, there will be within our SEND reform plan a comprehensive plan and programme of training, workforce development, helping teachers within our schools to be able to adapt their curriculum and adapt their teaching and learning to meet the needs of the children and support the children and their families. So, you know, as Councillor Blight, I think this is a welcome Cabinet report, and I hope it seeks your endorsement. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I mean, we were kind of moving in this direction, but certainly the work that George Gould did, for example, in terms of the government sense of direction about mainstreaming is obviously giving more firepower to us in our conversations with partners in schools. But the money, we continue to, I presume, be lobbying for more cash to enable us to do this. Yeah?
Yeah. Absolutely, Leader, we do. And we also have a bid-in with the DFE for substantial sums of capital money for the rebuild and expansion of current Milford School. We don't know the outcome of that yet, but we have had members of the decision-making team visit. So they visited the school, they've met with us, and certainly our application is proceeding through the stages. So, you know, we are optimistic that that we will achieve that, and that will be a significant multi-million investment into capital programmes within the city. I might just take the opportunity to remind us about how some of this is centred in the place-based working that has been, you know, in the city for a number of years. And over the last 18 months, that piece of work around place-based working has really embraced the inclusion agenda and the work around belonging. So you've been on the SEND programme boards and you've seen the evolution of that work. So that's also critical to this delivery. Thank you.
Anything more from you two? I mean, this is great, isn't it? I mean, you know, the thing is, I mean, the demand is growing, so the supply's got to grow. But more importantly, I mean, the saving of money's a consideration and obviously good news. But what's more important, I think, with the drive towards more inclusive behaviour in schools is the anxiety of parents that they're not getting the support from mainstream schools will disappear. Not completely, but it will go down because we're making the support available in mainstream schools, which has been, you know, why so many parents have been anxious about wanting to be out of that mainstream environment, and it's been a concern that we've had through the SEND board for a while, that escalating. But this is great, isn't it? We're happy with this. Yeah, okay. I think that'll do. There's a number of recommendations to agree today. Allocating £1 million from the iNeeds allocation, so that we can give up to £100,000 to individual schools and academies. There's the note in the 2.284 million for the inclusion places over the next 2 financial years, to approve the allocation of £1 million to undertake feasibility studies and develop future SEND capital projects across the education estate. To approve the proposed programme of engagement and co-production, which you mentioned was kind of quite an interesting side of this, one we fully support. And then to note the outcomes of that feasibility work and put it in a plan. That seems fairly straightforward, doesn't it? So, all those in favour of doing that, please show. Marvellous. Thank you very much. Thank you, team. And keep it going, please. It's going in the right direction. Yeah, good. Thank you. I'm going to move to item 9 now, which is on pages 49 to 66. Modern slavery statement for the last year gone. We're going to get Matt and Phil in, are we? Are they outside lurking? And Chris, you're going to take us through this one, aren't you? So the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the ongoing work within the council to tackle modern slavery. And hello, welcome. Chris is going to introduce the report. Then we may invite you to make some remarks or answer some impertinent questions from members. We'll see how it goes. Chris.
Thank you, Leader. I had to cast my mind back. It's actually about 11 years ago that I signed us up to the Cooperative Party's Modern Slavery Charter. Since then, I'm really pleased that actually all the commitments in that charter have become part of the legislative framework that we all now work to, because I think we agreed at the time that tackling slavery was as important today as it was at the time of the abolitionists. Each year, since we signed up to that charter, we've produced a report on the actions that we have taken to prevent and combat modern slavery. I'm really pleased that in Plymouth, levels of modern slavery are really low, and I'm also really pleased that we proactively work to minimise the impact of this changing or modern slavery growing in the city. Due to its nature,
Modern slavery is largely hidden and its victims extremely vulnerable. So we will continue to uphold the principles of the Charter we signed 11 years ago and will not become complacent. So our modern slavery statement lays out our commitment to combating modern slavery over the coming year. The background papers also highlight the work that's been undertaken to combat modern slavery in our supply chains and in our city, alongside highlighting some of the work that we've been doing both in the city and regionally with our partners. We continue to target our work both through Safer Plymouth and the partnerships that that brings to play, and our procurement team and the work they do through city supply chains. The list they've done of what they did during the last financial year in the report is impressive, because that is on top of everything else that they do. And I would especially like to thank Matt for the work he's done on this since joining the Safer Plymouth team last year, and Phil for the work he's been doing consistently on this in procurement over a number of years. And also, through them, please, to pass our thanks on to the teams and partnerships that they work with. I would like to highlight that since this reporting period has concluded, a piece of work that Matt developed as a toolkit has actually been recognised as national best practice by APSI. In fact, when they were searching for work to help people tackle modern slavery, this was the best they found anywhere and the most proactive approach by a local authority. And I think we need to recognise that. And certainly because of that, he and I were able to present that work at one of the national APSI webinars. So I'd like to say a big thank you to that, and to really emphasise the fact that just because modern slavery isn't big in Plymouth doesn't stop us tackling it. And because of that, raising awareness of the signs of modern slavery is a key focus of the work we do going forward, whether that's on staff development or supply chain awareness raising. I do ask that we all agree the new statement today, in order that Tudor and Tracy can sign that as our commitment for the coming year. And most importantly, that we continue to be vigilant, not just while we're being councillors, but while we're out and about as well, because the only way we will identify any victim of modern slavery is by having it spotted and reported. And we want to make sure that there is no one in Plymouth who is a slave today. And I think that's really important for us all to take forward. Thank you, Leader.
I mean, we had some amazing stories, Tracy and I, when this was coming before safeguarding. There was a story about how some of our traffic wardens had spotted some modern slavery stuff, you know what I mean? So it's like the embeddedness of this awareness amongst our staff's really quite something, actually, you know? And I hope we're keeping that work kind of going, because it clearly has worked, and it clearly has, you know, struck a chord amongst frontline staff as well, you know, about what they're looking for when they're out and about in their pursuance of ordinary duties and that. And, you know, it's really important stuff. Any more questions? Any questions? And Matt and Phil, is there anything that Chris didn't cover in his introduction that you want us to be aware of?
Chris did a good representation of what's going on.
He usually does, you know.
Matt is being very coy there. I think it would be really good for Matt just to talk a little about the toolkit he's developed, the amount of CPD work and workshops he's been doing, and also I know Matt joined some police action, and just to reflect a little on that, because he's not going to say it otherwise, but I think it is important for people to hear just the range of what he's doing and the depth that it's going to.
Can we embarrass you a little bit, please?
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, so
since I came in post, which is about 10 months ago now, we've got to a position whereby we are trying to help staff, partners, communities, councillors know what to look for and what to do when they see it. And it's a phrase that I use. I try to keep things really simple, being a simple person myself. And when I presented the Modern Slavery Toolkit some months ago, I talked about this. It's just about awareness, it's just about keeping your eyes and ears open. I deliver a number of CPD sessions, both for prevent, so radicalisation and exploitation. I'm expanding that suite of CPD sessions, and in fact, I've approached Democratic Services around providing counsellors with inputs both on exploitation and prevent, which we're in talks to deliver those. But in essence, it's about bringing people to a common talking table whereby people can bring their skills, experience, knowledge, resources to the task in question. We have developed the Anti-Slavery Partnership now, or Anti-Slavery and Exploitation Partnership as I've renamed it, just to cover all the bases, which we have a huge attendance and engagement with across the city and the surrounding communities around Plymouth as well, because it's important to recognise that people who exploit, people who commit crimes linked to exploitation don't recognise the Tamar Bridge as a boundary, don't recognise Deep Lane as a boundary. So it's about making sure that people who frequent Plymouth for whatever reason are safeguarded and looked after, and the people that look after them have the full awareness of what exploitation looks like. So that is in train, and that is now supported by our Slavery and Exploitation Risk Assessment Conference. And when I started this job, I spoke with Christina Browning, as she was Christina Ryland now, and we talked about what exploitation looked like in Plymouth. And you're right, Chris, is that we don't have the exploitation levels that some parts of our country do. However, what we do have is a hidden depth of exploitation within the city. People don't always recognise it when they see it. And through that, we were getting little reporting around signs of exploitation. Since that Slavery and Exploitation Risk Assessment Conference is in place and the Anti-Slavery Partnership is in place, supported by the ongoing CPD, we're in a position where I'm getting a number of concerns raised through to us on a weekly basis, whereby we can talk that through and look at what that looks like, what agencies need to be involved. We can dynamically risk assess and deal with some of that, as well as manage the activity through a monthly recording and progression meeting, that partnership meeting. And through that, learn, recognise where we've got things right, recognise where we've got things wrong, and start to build on that. And it's becoming an invaluable source of information sharing. The police are very much engaged with it. We're on the front foot. We are being held up as delivering some of the best service nationally and regionally with regards to that support we're giving both our staff and our communities. So it's something we should all be collectively really proud of, and couldn't be achieved if people didn't come at that with an open mind from a number of different agencies and departments. As I say, internally and externally, communities are really engaged with this, and it's a completely inclusive approach. So we don't rule anybody out, no matter what they're bringing and what level they're bringing. Everybody needs to come to that table.
Any questions from you folks? Could we, so you say the training that you do?
Yes.
I mean, give us a sense of, how is that actually done? I mean, is it in their workplace, or do they have to come somewhere to do it? Or?
So from a prevent perspective, our sign up to the Home Office is it's face-to-face training, and that can be delivered online as long as it's face-to-face in real time. So everything I do is in real time at the moment. Capacity may dictate otherwise eventually with regards to recorded provisions, but at the moment everything I deliver is face-to-face. I deliver, we have set up Eventbrite accounts, so we deliver that so people can actually just click on and log in and book a slot on any of the training that's delivered. And as I say, I'm chopping and changing some of that with regards to days of the week, times of the day, some of the subjects. So I've developed new programs on cuckooing, county lines, violence, fixated individuals, misogyny, etc. that we'll be delivering. But in addition, I also provide a service at the moment to go out to some of the major organisations in the city, Plymouth Community Homes, Probation, DWP, where I go out and actually do some face-to-face Q&A with them, talk to them about the reality of their roles and their responsibilities and what they come across every day. So as I can understand them, they can understand what I'm trying to deliver, and we get a better service to their customers. So it's two-pronged at the moment. There will be a third prong once capacity starts to hit that point where I will probably start recording certain inputs and people can then access them through a portal. But at the moment, we're doing everything face-to-face. You'll get to see it when you do yours.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm be interested in seeing what you do, Matt. I think it'd be fascinating. Okay. Are we anything in closing, Chris?
No, I think I would like to reassert my thanks. Obviously, we've concentrated a bit on Matt today because this is a new role. The work that Phil has been doing in terms of making sure our procurement paperwork is up to date and training for procurement staff and working through supply chains has also been there. We just talked about it before, so I don't want to play that down, but it's just that there was a whole new load of new things brought in this year. I would certainly endorse everything they've done and would ask that Cabinet adopts and approves this statement. Thank you.
Okay, well, we've been asked for to note the progress on the delivery of the statement and next steps required, and agree the updated modern slavery statement. So can I see all those in favour of those two things, please? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Thank you both very much for what you're doing. It's really, really important work, incredibly important work. Thank you. Right, I'm going to move on to agenda item 10, I think. Have I missed anything? No, it is 10, isn't it? Yes, it is. It is. That means it must be time for optimism and cheer. Would that be right? Kate Taylor, it's your gig.
You're not going to get it from me today. Apologies to my colleagues for the first of 3 papers that I have today, so you're going to have to get used to my voice for a little bit. So this is month 3 finance monitoring report, which provides Cabinet with our first full quarterly assessment of the Council's financial position for 26-27. To get the awkward and horrible bit out of the way, clearly at this stage in the year, the Council is forecasting an overspend of in excess of £7 million against a net revenue budget of over 326 million. Whilst that is clearly a position that we take seriously, I think it is more important than ever to understand what sits behind that number, because this is not a story of uncontrolled spending across Plymouth City Council. The overwhelming story is one of demand. Again and again, we talk about this regularly in this environment and in full council and in scrutiny. The financial pressures facing this council are concentrated in the big 4: adult social care, children's services, homelessness and home to school transport. That's still the case. These are the areas where the council has the least ability simply to turn people away. They are services supporting some of our most vulnerable residents, older and disabled people who need care, children and families who require support and protection, families facing homelessness and children with additional needs who need help to get to school. And demand in all of those services continues to grow. Adult social care's pressures reflect continued increases in the number of people requiring care and support. In children's services, the forecasting is driven largely by workforce capacity and demand for specialist services. We're also continuing to see a pressure in home to school transport as the number of children with EHCP related transport requirements increases, while homelessness remains one of our major demand pressures that is being managed across the council. That is the fundamental financial challenge that we are facing. It is not sustainable simply to add millions of pounds to these budgets every year as demand increases. Equally, our answer cannot simply be to withdraw support from those who need it. That is precisely why the work that we are doing on transformation, prevention and early intervention is so important. If we can help people earlier, prevent families from reaching crisis, support more people to remain independent and reduce our reliance on the most expensive forms of intervention, then we can do something which is both socially right and financially responsible. That is the task in front of us. Now, it is also important to remember that this is forecast at month 3. It gives us an early warning of where pressures are emerging, and importantly, it gives us plenty of time to do something about them. Last year, at Q2, the council was forecasting an overspend in excess of £8.5 million. And through focused management action, robust financial controls and mitigation activity, that position was substantially reduced by the end of the year. I don't mention that because we should assume that the same thing will happen again, but I mention it because it demonstrates why early intervention in our finances matters just as much as early intervention in those high pressure services. We identify the problem early, understand what's driving it, challenge it, and put plans into place. And that's what's happening now. The position being reported today reflects our commitment to being transparent about the council's finances. I'm not hiding difficult numbers, and I don't want to wait until later in the year to confront them. But there is some positive news in month 3. More than 97% of savings plans are either already achieved or they are in progress and expected to be delivered through alternative arrangements, demonstrating that the organisation remains focusing on doing what we said we would do. That is important because it demonstrates that we are delivering the savings that have been asked to be made. It's absolutely vital that we distinguish between the council failing to deliver its savings programmes and the very difficult challenge of demand growing faster than the resources available to meet it. That distinction for me is crucial. If the problem is rising demand, the long-term solution is not an endless cycle of salami slicing budgets elsewhere in the organisation. We have to change demand itself. That is transformation, as Councillor Lowry is overseeing. It's prevention, it's early intervention, it's looking at the way that we commission services and the way that services operate. And ultimately, it means redesigning those services around better outcomes for residents rather than simply paying for increasingly expensive crises once they have happened. Alongside the revenue position, the report highlights a substantial capital programme, over £290 million over 5 years, supporting investment in infrastructure, regeneration, housing, transport and services for our residents. So in summary, the month 3 forecast is a concern and I expect continued focus on bringing that £7 million position down. And I've pre-warned both officers and colleagues that that will be the focus over the next few months. But we understand where those pressures are and we're being transparent about them. Savings deliveries remain strong, recovery activity is underway, and most importantly, we are focusing our attention on the structural issues sitting underneath these figures, the relentless growth in demand across Big Four services. There are no easy answers to this challenge, but simply accepting year-on-year increases in both demand and cost is not sustainable. Our job over the coming months is not to manage this year's position, but to continue the much bigger work of transforming those services so they both deliver better outcomes for residents and become financially sustainable for the future. I therefore ask Cabinet to note the content of the report.
Brilliant, thanks, Kate. That's a really great way of putting the situation that we're in. And I presume you've got to take this. Have you got to go somewhere else with this scrutiny? Have you got to go? Or yeah. So I mean, it'll be interesting if what you just said passes the scrutiny test. You'd be my challenge to scrutiny. Listen very carefully to what Councillor Taylor is saying, because she speaks the truth. And it is really important that all of the council understand where the pressures on the budget are actually coming from. And they would be faced by any administration, whatever the political complexity of it. And there are no magic wands, there is only hard work and graft. And that's it. So I think you put that rather succinctly, Kate, thank you. What do you want us to do today then? Just note the report, note the capital programme, and note the performance against prudential indicators. That's what we've got to do. Have you got any questions for Kate or for David? No, I think you've all scared them senseless, and quite right. And actually, if I could say, quite right too, because that is what we've asked you to do and what we asked David to do, which is to remember that spending has to be kept under control. So I'm just going to now put the recommendations and reasons to you, and they're on page 67 of the report. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much indeed. Right, I now move on to item 11, which is medium-term financial strategy. Somebody will, at some point I know, explain to me the difference between a financial plan and a financial strategy, because I still, after all these years, don't know. Perhaps I'll leave that one to you, Dave. How's that for hospital pass? But in the meantime, while you're thinking about how to answer that question, could Councillor Taylor please regale us with her introduction?
Thank you, Leader. It is still the summer, but we're already looking ahead to 27-28 and the budget meeting in February. I think it is important to be clear at the outset about what we are considering today. So this document is not the budget. It's not a list of decisions that we've already taken. It is a strategy. It sets out the ground rules, the starting point for showing the financial challenges ahead and the broad brush areas of work required to close the gap. It's not short, but I don't apologise for the length or the detail in the report, because ultimately, if we are going to take responsible decisions about hundreds of millions of pounds of public money and the more than 300 services that people in the city rely upon, then we all deserve to understand the financial envelope that we are working within. Next year, we will be in year 2 of the 3-year settlement, and the strategy assumes that resources will be in line with the previous announcement. Within the core resources, we have incorporated the growth dividend from additional council tax as a result of house building. We fully expect any changes to the core funding to be positive rather than a reduction, and as and when we are made aware of new funding, this will be incorporated into the next report. We set out the forecast expenditure requirements from right-sizing the budget to cost in staff costs and reverse one-off funding streams for the current year. And we have added in for 27-28 demand-led pressures for those big 4 areas mentioned previously, which together total 24.5 million. This continues to illustrate the size of the issues that we face. Behind those figures are real people with real needs, and our responsibility is both to meet those needs and to make sure that the way we do so is financially sustainable for the council. So you may ask, what are we going to do to close the gap? Working with Cabinet colleagues, I've set a mission on challenging everything, literally just about everything. We will challenge assumptions, we will challenge any budget growth requests across the organisation, we will challenge the existing savings proposals to make sure that they're realistic and deliverable. We will maximise the opportunities from Stronger by Design and the work with Empower. We will look at every opportunity to maximise income and grant funding. We will look carefully at our corporate and commercial estate through the developing asset management strategy. And I've asked our finance officers to re-examine our treasury management activity to make sure we are getting the best possible borrowing rates and maximising our investment income. There will be no single silver bullet that closes a gap of this scale. But while we are realistic about the financial challenge, we are not allowing it to extinguish our ambition for Plymouth. Our capital programme remains substantial, in continuing to invest in our city, its infrastructure and its future. And Plymouth has enormous opportunities ahead of it, from housing and regeneration to our status as a national defence growth area and the investment and economic opportunities that come with that. There is lots to do. Finally, an honourable mention for local government reorganisation and the impact on Plymouth City Council. This strategy has been developed against a backdrop of future unknowns that arise from LGR. As the detailed structure, responsibilities and most importantly funding arrangements for the new Greater Plymouth Authority are still being determined, this strategy does not attempt to model the financial implications of reorganisation. It is based on Plymouth City Council continuing to operate in its current form over the next 5 years. It presents a business as usual view of the council's financial position, service commitments and resource requirements. There is a significant challenge ahead of us, but I would much rather that we as a team challenge and confront that early, openly and with a clear plan for how we are going to tackle it, rather than wait until February and reach for short-term fixes. This strategy is the beginning of that process. It is about responsible financial management, but it is also about our values and priorities as an administration, protecting the services that people rely upon, transforming the way that we work, investing in prevention rather than in crisis, continuing to grow our city, and making sure that every pound of public money works as hard as possible for the people of Plymouth. And on that basis, I'm happy to recommend the medium-term financial strategy to Cabinet today.
That's very kind of you. Very kind of you. Thank you, Kate. Have you had any thoughts?
Thank you, Leader. Can I just say thank you to Councillor Taylor for that succinct trip through such a long document. So thank you for that. I just point out, before we answer your question, Leader, I just want to draw people's attention to Appendix 1, which we're calling Scenario Analysis. So within the heart of the document, it does say there is a big gap coming forward, particularly in 27-28. And if we can solve the 27-28 issues, then it smooths out as we go forward. But there are, we've sort of set out most likely case, a pessimistic case, and goodness me, of the accountant's view of an optimistic view of the world. So that the point of saying that is, although the document says for next year we're looking at a £26.6 million gap that we need to work on, that is just one scenario. So the point is, this is not the complete article. This is the start rather than the end of what we need to do in order to get to a balanced budget when we get to the February Council. So I think it's also worth noting, Councillor Taylor, that it's not unusual at this stage to have that size of a gap. It concentrates people's minds and it will start the conversations, and we all know that it will come down as we move closer towards that D-Day. In terms of your questions, Leader, if I baffle you a little bit, so we've got an MTFS in front of us, which is the medium-term financial strategy, which, as was pointed out, sets out the broad brush and the areas and the issues that are coming towards us. And it also, in broad terms, says what we're doing in order to alleviate those pressures without putting numbers to them, because that would then take us into a medium-term financial plan, because the strategy sets out what we're working on, the playing field. The plan says how do we actually move the ball around, and it's akin very tightly to the budget. So if you understand what the budget is, it's a financial plan for 1 year. The medium-term financial plan is effectively a budget for 3, 4, 5 years. And then hidden within all of that, you get the other terminology that we like to throw at you, which is the MTFF, the medium-term financial forecast, which is not necessarily a standalone document, but forms part of the strategy and very clearly part of the plan. I will ask you questions later. So the main thing is that we've got the strategy here today, and it's important that it's come earlier in the cycle than it normally does, simply because of, well, there's a couple of points to make. The size of the challenges as set out by Councillor Taylor, and it does centre around the big four and how we approach the demand-led pressures. But it's also a better opportunity because we've now got a 3-year settlement, so we're not sort of second-guessing what the Chancellor might be doing in terms of our funding in December. We've got that clearly set out for us. Having said that, here we are. This is what we know today. I cannot tell you what the Chancellor might do in his first budget, or whether he has plans for local government going forward, or indeed, as we hinted in that introduction, the impact of the local government reorganisation. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, David. Thank you very much indeed. Has anybody got any questions for David or for Kate at this stage? No. I mean, I'm hoping, I presume this is happening, that neighbouring authorities would be doing this exercise themselves as well, even the ones that are disappearing. Because in your conversations around disaggregation, I guess as well as having some detail, there's also got to be a sense of direction of travel, isn't there?
Yes, so although this document is treating Plymouth City Council as a continuing business, we are working very closely, as you would expect, with finance officers across the region. It's more important now, in fact, the sharing of data has become so open and transparent, which is something we'd have liked previously. But yeah, absolutely, we're getting all the detail, and we have to make sure that we understand what the consequences are, what the funding, what the costs from the reorganised councils going forward.
Okay, so we have but one recommendation and reason. Anything you want to say in closing? In which case, on page 1 of the supplement pack, it's Cabinet recommends that full council, it says here, recommends that full council approve the medium-term financial strategy. Is that the desire of you all? May I see? All those in favour? Thank you very much. It's far be from me to say this, but I suggest giving that speech to council would be very instructive. Thank you very much. Now then, I think we need to move to item 12. And that is a little recitation called Manifesto Priorities. Now, this is where we report in public back on some of the things that we've been doing to implement our manifesto, which is now, of course, as you know, part of the corporate plan of the authority. I wondered if I could, I don't want to go through all of your work, if you don't mind, because we haven't got all day. So can I call on, let me call on Tess first. Tess Blake, please.
I'm reporting back on our manifesto promise about the libraries. I'm pleased to confirm that since the 3rd of August, we've begun the first phase of extending opening hours across the library network, increasing access for residents and strengthening the role that libraries play within the communities. Devonport Library, for example, now benefits from an opening day on Fridays, which is additional to their offer. This increases the weekly opening hours to 24 hours. North Prospect Library has introduced Thursday opening, bringing its total to 18 hours. Plymouth Library now opens on Mondays and is available to residents for 6 days a week, providing 46 hours of service. And Southway Library has also added Thursday opening. That's increasing its provision to 39 hours across the 5 days. These improvements represent a significant enhancement in access to library services, providing greater flexibility for residents to engage with reading, learning, digital support, and community activities. This is the first stage in our wider ambition to improve library availability across the city, which was a key Labour manifesto promise in the recent May local election. We'll continue to review opportunities for further extensions as staffing capacity and volunteer numbers grow. So good news.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Tess. That's excellent news. I presume you've been doing some TikTok videos, have you, or some such to let the message get out?
I have, and I'm eagerly awaiting the second because enough footage was filmed for at least 4 videos, I think. And so far on social media, there's only been 1.
Okay, well, we look forward to that. Well done indeed. And that'll go down very well in communities, that. What about John Stevens? Would you like to say anything, John?
I'm happy to, Leader. The communications programme of our Labour manifesto project to fix as many potholes as we can, Project Pothole, launched successfully in July with a suite of materials highlighting different highway retreatment options, including a website location detailing progress to date against the target of 20,000 potholes and defects Engagement has been high and interest sparked across multiple social media channels, including positive feedback. In fact, our highways team has received lots of positive feedback from their peers in other local authorities in England, including the head of local government technical advisory group, which is great to share that good practice. This engagement is not about telling what we're doing, but also educating everyone who watches and reads about the approaches we carry out to repair our roads and footways, which are often season related. There's been specific progress in the last month in relation to the Seek and Repair programme, prioritising junctions on residential roads. They're in an advanced stage with 35 sites identified and are currently being costed to carry out the work. There's been solid progress happening on building on contract extensions for our velocity and road mender services, which are having an impact across the city. And additional dressing sites have been delivered, will be delivered at the end of this month. Preservation spray treatments, which I know you'll soon be learning about on a video near you soon, has been programmed for September, and all activities will be covered in the ongoing communications programme. 68 roads have been identified for significant repair, and this equates to 49,000 square metres of road surface, which equates to 7 Millennium Stadium pitches or over 250 Wimbledon Centre courts. On the project pothole page on our council's website, visitors will see that between April and at the end of July, 5,273 potholes and defects have been repaired. The traffic cone graphic shows that this equates to 26.4% of our target to fix 20,000 potholes and defects in this council year. So good progress happening on the road.
That's fabulous, those figures. Do you reckon you could give those figures a bit of a wider circulation, John?
I'll be happy to, yeah.
I think that's absolutely amazing. Thank you very much. The Millennium Stadium one, though, I'm interested in that one. Why not Home Park? All right, okay then. No, yeah, you did well there. You did very well there. Yeah, that's all right. Okay, that's cool. Chris, you wanted to give us an update, didn't you?
Yes, Leader. Noisy vehicles are a nuisance for many of Plymouth's residents, businesses and visitors. Ultimately, moving vehicle offences are a police responsibility, but we acknowledge that we as a council can supplement the enforcement action that they can take. Over many years, I've consistently raised noisy vehicles at meetings of the Police and Crime Panel, and we've a long-standing problems with vehicle noise in my ward. Under the previous government, I worked with Luke Pollard MP to request a pilot noise programme for the Barbican. Sadly, we were unsuccessful. Since taking this work into my portfolio in May, I've had a number of conversations with the police and the Police and Crime Commissioner, and will continue to do so until the problem is tackled. I'm personally invested. Last night I was woken up 4 times by noisy vehicles, and my casework shows that many others suffer similar issues, as do I, most nights of the week. Over the summer, the police have undertaken a number of interventions. The largest of these, on the 6th of August, was a joint agency operation involving the South Sector Neighbourhood Team working with DVSA and the Road Casualty Reduction Team, which targeted behaviours on West Hoe Road, Millbay Road and Durnford Street. The operation was undertaken following reports from the community of vehicles travelling at excessive speed and excessive noise in these areas, especially on a Thursday night when Plymouth Bike Night occurs on the Hoe. I hasten to say, responsible bike riders don't cause problems, and I support the work that Plymouth Bike Night does in bringing communities together and raising money for charities. However, not all bike owners, or for that matter, souped-up car owners, are responsible. The police focused on engagement, but they'll be back to focus those that do not engage in our combined efforts to respect residents in both these areas and others around the city. On the evening, just one evening piece of work, following enforcement was taken 7 illegal number plates, 2 speeding vehicles on West Hoe Road, 6 on Millbay Road and 3 on Durnford Street. 2 vehicles with no L plates displayed despite learner drivers driving them. 2 cars and a motorcycle failed to stop. It was a bit stupid of them because their number plates were identified and they will be prosecuted in court. DVSA issued 7 motorcycles with delayed prohibitions due to their illegal exhausts, which meant they had 7 days to purchase a new exhaust and have their vehicles MOT'd. It's a pretty damning indictment on a few vehicle users across the city that disrupt so many others. I'm pleased that the lobbying Alderman Hayden and I did persuaded the Police and Crime Commissioner that the next location of the current police-controlled pilot noise camera, currently situated in Torbay, will be in Plymouth. In the meantime, our Safer Plymouth team are working with the police in order to look at how we can join up our enforcement powers to maximise the impact the placement of a pilot camera in Plymouth can have. And that's something that hasn't been done before, and which is why a pilot here will be really interesting. I've also been having conversations with the Police and Crime Commissioner and the Plymouth Police Commander about what more we can do. As a result of these, the police, with our support, are in discussion with the unit manufacturers about options for increasing the number of pilot cameras available to be placed in Plymouth. For a number of years, I have been asking people to make sure that they report noisy vehicles to the police. It's no good telling me, Councillor Lowry, but to the police, predominantly using 101 or online reporting, unless it's a 999 incident. And I know I don't do that often enough. You might have spotted this morning on Facebook that Luke Pollard MP is also asking people to do this. Whilst the police will not be responding immediately to a noisy vehicle issue, they will be collating the reports to help target their future enforcement response. So I would once again ask people to report incidents to make sure the police are able to respond to patterns, but also to build the evidence for why we need noise cameras in Plymouth, because without that evidence, we won't get them. Thank you.
Oh, terrific, and congratulations to you for having got that action out of the police as well, and well done to the police for catching so many people mob-handed there. Just a quick one, for my benefit as much as the watching public, if somebody wants to report this noise nuisance, how is it best to do that? How do the police want you to do it?
Unless it's a risk to life and limb 999 incident, which a noisy vehicle very rarely will be, use 101 reporting if you want to phone. But actually, if it's a repeat problem at home, keep a diary over a week and report it online through the police online reporting. That way you won't need to do lots of repeated reports, but you will then have the written evidence. Once you've done that online, if you want to copy it to the council's ASB team, that's up to you, but we're using the same data. So if it's sitting with the police because a moving vehicle offence is a police offence, not a council offence, it's better to do with them. So 101 or online reporting. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris, that's great. Okay, I'm going to move on to item 13 now, I think, unless anybody's got a desperate urge to say something. No, that's lovely. Yeah, risk management monitoring report. Now, this one comes from Kate Taylor again.
I promise I'm nearly done. Thank you, Leader. Introducing the latest risk management monitoring report, which sets out the position as at the 30th of July 2026. Before I turn to the content, my regular reminder about why this matters, because a risk register can sound like a technical document, and really it isn't. This council keeps children and vulnerable adults safe. We hold a lot of sensitive information about tens of thousands of residents. We maintain the roads that people drive on and the parks that their children play in. And we do it all with public money at a time when every pound is under pressure. So good risk management is simply how we stay honest with ourselves about what could go wrong and act before it does, rather than after. It directs our resources to where they're most needed, and it means the decisions that we take in this room are taken with our eyes open. It is also a matter of public accountability. Bringing this report to a public meeting lets residents in this city judge for themselves how well the council manages the risks that we carry. So in the report are 15 strategic risks owned by the corporate management team and 58 operational risks owned by service directors across the organisation. Of the 15 strategic risks, 4 are scored as medium or high. The 2 highest are the failure of our cybersecurity protection and the failure of financial planning and delivery, both scored at 20. Our financial risk has risen by 4 points since the last report, but perhaps that will surprise nobody given the pressures facing local government, and it is the risk that our transformation programme in Stronger by Design is squarely aimed at. Safeguarding children has also risen by 4 points, and strategic asset management remains at 12. There is one new strategic risk this quarter: the failure to prevent fraud, bribery and corruption, scored at 8, which is low. Adding this does not reflect a new problem. It reflects a more mature approach to risk, naming something openly, bringing it here and putting controls around it rather than assuming it will look after itself. No risks have been removed since the last report. At an operational level, 4 risks are scored as high: the reimbursement of concessionary bus fares, the potential loss of confidential data, the risk of injury from falling trees, and the volume of information requests. Each has a named owner and an action plan which are set out in the appendices of the report. Finally, members may want to note the continuing work with the Devon Audit Partnership. The first phase gave officers consistent scoring guidance and a shared language for risk. The second, now underway, is about embedding those across every directorate and bringing our risk management strategy through governance. The aim, in the words of the report, is to bring risk management alive, to make it a working management tool rather than a form to simply be filled in. The recommendation before Cabinet is to note the report.
That's lovely, Kate, thank you. Anybody got any questions? I mean, you will be having a look at these on a regular basis anyway, I would imagine. I'll tell you one I didn't understand, can I? Yeah. It's that one, it says, failure to effectively respond to major incidents, up 3. Now, that can't be because we don't do it. Is it because they're more likely to happen now? Is that why it's gone up? It's just that we seem to have done a lot on a lot of bombs and buildings falling down and stuff lately.
I think it's more around that, as we know, we're quite a hazard-rich city.
We
I
are.
think has been said several times. And I think it was only last week, we had 2 potential incidents on one day. So inevitably, I think it's just recognising that we're not rich in resources to respond, and it's just recognising that if we do have multiple incidents, then that will put pressure on the system. It's not reflecting any work that we've done to try and prevent any hazards or any incidents, but there is always pressure in the system. It doesn't take much for one thing, and then there's a domino of other things, particularly in summertime when people are on leave and holidays.
Okay. Bombs are us. Yeah. Anything, Paul, you want to add to what Councillor Taylor has put in the...
No, and I think just to follow on from what Tracy said, I think we rescored it slightly because of feedback from this committee following the probability of finding more things as we do more work.
Yes, and we will keep digging things up. So, yeah, I see that's the problem. Okay. Well, I don't think there's much to do other than to ask you, if you haven't got any further questions, shall we agree the recommendation that we note the risk management monitoring report? All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That's very kind. So we're now moving on to item 14. And this is where I turn to Councillor Lowry and ask if you wouldn't mind presenting the Q1 report, please.
Thank you, Leader. As you say, this is the Q1 corporate plan monitoring report. So basically the first 3 months of the new municipal year. And our aim within this report is to set out what our priorities are and how we are tackling them and what our sort of scorecard is against each of those elements. You won't be surprised to hear that our priorities are around tackling crime and antisocial behaviour, fixing potholes, cleaning our streets, building more homes, green investment in skills, better access to health and dentistry, and keeping safe children, adults and communities, all of which you've probably heard about today in reality. So our corporate plan is something that we're delivering against, and you've heard many members today talk about how we're progressing that. This report has changed a little from the last one you saw, in that the Scrutiny Management Board asked for some additional information around benchmarking and targets and how we can better explain that. And I did make it very clear to them that this is a high-level report and the details should be available in the various scrutiny panels that work across the council. But there are additional information in here. So the report itself, I'll just give you some broad headlines. Antisocial behaviour reports have increased, but our early intervention has been also increased, which is held at some 87. We've seen an increase in community engagement events across the city. On education, permanent exclusions have fallen. Every major planning application has been determined on time. We're exceeding our targets of bringing long-term empty homes back into use. And the number of children on protection plans have reduced to 246. So an awful lot of good news and good progress on some very key objectives for ourselves. There is, of course, areas that we're not doing so well on. You won't be surprised to hear that we need to build more homes. It's something we constantly talk about. You heard today, of course, from Councillor Smith how we're bringing forward the Civic itself. In addition to that, there's a 130 home scheme being built on Bath Street, which, of course, will help make a difference. We do know, of course, that there is a significant increase in the number of children that have been looked after in the council. So we've seen a continued rise in June to 544. And finally, you've also heard today from Councillor Taylor about some of the issues that exist in the finance area and the good work that we're all collectively doing on trying to balance the budget and deal with the medium-term financial plan. So in short, the council is delivering against its priorities. However, it is always a challenging space, and I thank everyone for their contribution in compiling this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Mark. I don't presume that you've got any questions to Mark, because a lot of it's your work, isn't it? No, I don't think there are any questions. In which case, can I ask you to please note the corporate plan monitoring report by showing you do that? Thank you. Leads announcements. I reported last time on the very wise decision of the government to grant the request for us to become a larger unitary authority for LGR. So I don't want to go through all of that again, but you know that on the 1st of April 2028, we will be welcoming with trumpets and various other noisy devices the start of the Greater Plymouth Council. Well, it's Greater Plymouth Council as long as the structural change order, which goes to Parliament soon, is agreed. I mean, they might have another change, they might call it, I don't know what they might call it, but that's what our working assumption is around it now. But what this is the start of some work. I mean, we haven't finished the job. In fact, the job is now started because the work has to be planned, it has to be delivered. You've just seen from the last agenda item that is on the risk register, the failure to implement LGR successfully, right? So that does require quite a little bit of work. Not only do we have to help prepare the ground for the shadow authority and then the new authority, but we also have to close our innings as well as Plymouth City Council. So it's quite a big job. whilst keeping the show on the road, because the residents still demand high quality services from us until the time that we don't have to provide them anymore, right? Anyway, thus far, I think it's important to formally thank everybody who has contributed to the development of the proposals, the engagement activities, and the discussions throughout the process. I think last time we thanked, in particular, Ross, I think, but we also, and Paul Barnard, of course, initially was part of that gang. But there's been loads of staff that's been involved, Ellie Firth in particular, and the engagement stuff, and members of Democratic support have been out and about with the various things. So there's loads of people to thank, and of course there'll be loads more people to thank in due course. Now, what we need to do throughout this process is keep, as the man from Uncle used to say, to keep open Channel D. In other words, to keep our neighbours, friends, partners, residents, stakeholders, and the like in the loop. Because there's still a lot of uncertainty and confusion around about what it is. You know, we've got to make sure that we're communicating as best we can at all times. Now, one of the exciting things that happened during that announcement, I don't think we paid reference to this last time, was the fate of councillors. So, you know, just to put on the record in this forum that the government has confirmed changes to local elections as part of the transition arrangements. So those councillors whose terms would normally end in 2027, this is Plymouth City councillors I'm talking about now, will continue to represent their wards until 31st of March 2028. So if you're thinking of retiring in 27, I am hoping very much you'll hang on in there for another year and land the plane. But in May 27, there will be a full set of elections. But that won't be to Plymouth City Council, that will be to the Greater Plymouth Council, should it be called that. Now, those that are elected in May 2027 will form a shadow authority, okay? So that, and their job will be to prepare for the new council ahead of its launch on the 1st of April 2028. So there'll be some people sitting in the council who are both members of Plymouth City Council and the shadow Greater Plymouth Authority. There will be some who are only members of the shadow authority, and there will be some that are only members of the Plymouth City Council. I mean, I've lost me already, but that is what will be happening. Now, one council meeting. Well, no, you see, this is the thing. There'll be separate council meetings. Now, we haven't yet had the conversation about how that might work. But I mean, it could be that you have a meeting that Plymouth City Council attends, and then you have a further meeting on that day where it's Plymouth, Greater Plymouth Council shadow. It might be that, or it might be not. But I mean, bearing in mind that we would have to work with everybody in both councils, because some people have got work, some people have got caring responsibilities. So it's not just a question of course we'll do it like that. We will have to have that conversation. But it will ultimately be a decision for the shadow authority about when it meets, not this authority to tell the shadow authority when it meets, okay? But there'll be loads of things like this we're thinking, is that our job or is that their job? I mean, I notice our dear friends in Plymouth Live have already decided that, you know, we're all terrible people for having two jobs. Well, let me tell you, you know, there'll be a lot of work, whether you're on one council, if you're still running this one, there'll be a lot of work if you're on the shadow. And if you're doing both, there'll be a hell of a lot of work. And so it's interesting that people who I took to be like trade unionists are now saying that, Pablo, you shouldn't get paid for doing the work you do. Interesting, that's another story. Anyway, the point, as I said, what we need to do as well is support our partners in what's going on, so they know who to interact with. We'll have, arrangements, new arrangements that we have now, working in certain ways with certain people. We'll have to transition to the new authority. And, there's a lot of practical stuff here, not political stuff so much, but a lot of practical stuff. And I think there'll be times when, officers will be kind of just going off and making things so, because otherwise, we'll be in meetings from 9 to 5 every day, and nobody wants that. But what we're going to do over the next few months is we're going to let people know exactly, as we discover what's going to be going on, what it means in practice for residents. So here's an example on a practical level. Somebody is currently, there's 3 members of a ward, for example, and then those 3 people decide not to stand for election. So there's 3 new people being elected in that ward. Question is who does the casework? I know it's easy to answer that question, but it isn't, is it? When you start working that through, there's some practical things that needs doing, right? I mean, and that's just as complicated a question. And the reason you need to answer that question is because some people in some wards might have 2 people on the council, on one council, and 1 person on another council. Who do you go to? Oh, well, I'm not going to do that. Well, I've just elected you. Yeah, but it's not my job. Can you imagine how? So it's really important that we talk this through with residents so they understand exactly what will be going on and who's responsible for what as we discover. And by the way, the staff will need to know stuff like that as well. It's often difficult when we change cabinet members for people to catch up with who's doing what. Imagine what it's like when it's the whole council. So there's a lot of comms work that's got to be done, a lot of internal comms as well as external comms in preparing the ground. But it's going to be the people who were elected in 2027. It's not an easy ride. Let me say that. There's going to be a lot of pressure on people because we'll have a deadline for those folks who are on the shadow authority. They've got to get it right so that on the 1st of April 2028, the new council is open for business. That's a heck of a pressure. It's not as easy as you think. It's just not. HR policies in place, tick. Are people being paid? Tick. There's all of that. And who's sending out the council tax bills? By the way, is it the shadow authority? Because are they empowered to do that? Who's chasing up the debt from the previous? These are all lovely questions. Okay.
The answers.
So, yeah, we haven't got all the answers yet, have we?
We don't have all the answers, but the Shadow Authority has very, very specific powers only. And so we will be very clear about what those very specific powers are for the Shadow Authority in its shadow year of operation.
So, short answer is Tracy knows, but not everybody knows. And that's so. But I think it's important that nobody makes an assumption until we've seen all this stuff. The structural change orders are going to be important as well in this respect as well. Okay, so that'll do for that then. Thank you all very much indeed. And can I now turn to Cabinet Member updates? Jemima, would you like to start, please?
Thank you, Leader. I want to start. I talk a lot about the box. It's been commented on. And, we often talk about exhibitions and activities, but maybe not so much about the archive. So that's why I'm really proud to announce that the box has successfully retained Archive Service accreditation from the National Archives. It's the UK-wide quality standard that recognises excellence in archive management. From 12th century manuscripts to major moving image collections, archives preserve the stories, the memories and experiences that have shaped our city and beyond. And as Art Fund's Museum of the Year 2026, we're working hard to make the remarkable collections in our care as visible, accessible and relevant as possible. So I'm really thrilled that the team have retained this really vital accreditation, and congratulations to all of our archive team. And I also wanted to mention a really lovely event that Councillor Blight and I were at a couple of weeks ago at Ivybridge Cricket Club, which was the launch of our 5th Mockingbird constellation. And for those who don't know what that is, I've talked about it before. It's a way of fostering where you have a central home hub pair of carers at the centre who don't have children placed with them, but they act as kind of grandparents, uncles, with 10 fostering families around them who can call on them for support. They arrange events, trips, holidays. We had some of our young people that are in our care were judges for the firework competition, and that day they had all been to Torquay Splashdown, or whatever it's called these days, that incredible water park. They'd all been as a group, as a Mockingbird constellation, to enjoy that. So it was great to meet Paula and Jerry, who are going to be the home hub carers for that constellation, and to spend time with our foster carers and some of our children who are in our care. And it's really wonderful to hear from foster carers about the support that being part of a Mockingbird constellation provides, and that in turn provides stability in placements for our children, which is above everything the most important thing for those children and young people. And we know that Mockingbird really helps keep those children in those placements. So that's our 5th constellation, and we have our 6th constellation in train as well. And we are hoping to get to a point where every foster carer who wants to be in a Mockingbird constellation is in one. It's proving really effective in Plymouth, and is an attraction to people who are thinking about becoming foster carers, because one of the things people are nervous about is support and how they'll be supported when they need it. But it was just a really, really lovely morning at Ivybridge Cricket Club. Paula, as well as being an incredible home hub carer, is an incredible baker, and we all enjoyed the fruits of her labour a couple of Fridays ago. So yeah, thank you, Leader. That's my announcements.
Jemima, thank you very much indeed. John Stevens, you wanted an update, didn't you?
Yes, thank you. Following the success of the government's Kids Go Free, their words, not my words, I don't like the word kids, scheme throughout August, which has enabled children from age of up to 15, because under 5s are free anyway, children up to 15 have been able to travel free in the buses across the country, and this has helped families enjoy affordable days out over the summer holidays. But I'm really delighted to announce that a further Plymouth initiative to support residents and encourage greater use of local bus network is going to happen soon. So throughout September, we will be offering free bus travel for everyone on weekends, no matter their age, everyone who lives in Plymouth. This means that all journeys and local bus services that start within the Plymouth boundary will be free of charge on Saturdays and Sundays, regardless of where the journey ends. Whether residents are heading to work, enjoying a family day out, meeting friends, attending events, visiting local attractions, or simply exploring everything our city and surrounding areas have to offer, they will be able to do so at no cost. The initiative is not only a reward for our existing bus users, but also an opportunity for those who may not have travelled, well, essentially an opportunity for those who may not have travelled by bus before, or who have not used the network for some time. It's a chance for them to experience the convenience, affordability, and environmental benefits of public transport. And the scheme is being enabled through the government bus service funding and delivered in partnership with our local bus operators throughout the Plymouth Enhanced Partnership, including Plymouth City Bus, Stagecoach South West and Tally Ho. And to avoid any confusion with the ongoing Kids Go Free scheme, which runs until the end of August. The promotion of the free weekend travel initiative will begin from September the 1st, ahead of the scheme's launch. And this has been tried in other cities in recent years, and evidence has shown that it can add up to a 40% bonus of bus patronage. And obviously people will ask, well, what happens in October onwards? But there has in those places been a 10% uplift. So we're really hoping that we can start doing this to encourage people to use the buses, and the more that can do them, particularly if it's free, an opportunity to reduce congestion on our roads.
So everyone goes free?
Everyone goes free
for
on
weekends,
Saturdays and Sundays.
For like the whole of September?
Yes. But for example, if they go to Tavistock,
right,
it's free. It's free to go to Tavistock, but if you want to go home then from Tavistock, you have to pay. Okay, so if a journey starts in Plymouth, you pay for it. The Falcon's exempt, so there's no extra trips to you to Bristol Airport and faraway lands. The Falcon's exempt, as is, sorry, Councillor Taylor, the Argyle matchday buses as well. But everything else is free, so on the buses.
A great opportunity to come into Plymouth city centre and experience the magic of Plymouth newest attraction, the Armada Way. Lovely. Thank you very much. That's very exciting, isn't it? Yeah. So anybody else got anything? In which case I'm going to item 17. Now, in terms of my LGA report, I just want to mention something that was successfully lobbied for by the LGA, which was to give local government more powers to tackle betting and vape shops. Now, in a number of places around the UK, there's been a proliferation of shops, and it can alter the character of districts, shopping centres and high streets. Certainly that's been the case in some parts of the UK. Somewhat overstated on social media, I think, in some places. But nevertheless, the councils have been unable to, for example, stop the profusion of betting shops opening up in a district shopping centre, for example. So there's no actual shops anymore, but there's loads of betting shops. So the powers are very limited to local government to enable them to maintain the character of those kind of facilities. So the government recently announced that it was going to give councils stronger powers to regulate betting and vaping shops, and also to bring vacant premises back into use, all in order to revitalise high streets. Now, again, that's the case in some parts of the UK. It's an absolute nightmare. We have our own challenges, of course, and in terms of our public health aspirations, having vape shops everywhere is a problem. But there we are. But what I'm going to ask John Stevens to do now, in the context of the planning regulations, is to see how in our emerging local plan, and if it's possible earlier, these new powers, when they come in, can be utilised by us to control the spread of these shops. I know that they are a concern to communities sometimes about what's going on in there. So there was a very successful campaign recently in Bury, for example, in Greater Manchester, over the proliferation of shops that were doing things they shouldn't have under the guise of these. So perhaps, John, you'll bring back some findings of fact later on when you've had a chance to look at these new powers. Okay, leave it there. Okay, I think that's it for today, unless I'm very much mistaken. In which case, can I thank officers? Thank you, members of the Cabinet, and we will see you again in September, where we're going to have some really even more spectacular stuff to talk to you about. Thank you very much.
Thank you.